In 2024, Netflix released a disturbing and tragic docuseries called The Program: Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping. It showcased the horrors young people face through parent-sanctioned abductions to these so-called academies that purported to fix wayward kids. Now we get a fictionalized look into some of that in the limited series Wayward. It stars Toni Collette, and it might just churn your stomach. Nothing is what it seems in Tall Pines. After an escape attempt from an academy for troubled teens, two students join forces with a newly arrived police officer, unearthing the town's dark and deeply rooted secrets. In addition to Collette, this also stars Mae Martin, who's also the creator of the series as well as one of the writers. There's also Sarah Gadon, Olivia Allen Lind, Sydney Topliff, John Daniel, and Brandon J. McLaren. Now, Martin is a cop who's new to the town of Tall Pines, moving there with their wife, played by Gadon. And the town is known for housing the Tall Pines Academy, which is a live-in facility for kids who could be there for any number of perceived issues. Now, the town itself, it isn't explored too much within the show, but we immediately get the sense that it's very tight-knit and slightly off. I mean, not necessarily full-blown sketchy, but there is an underlying unease that permeates everything. Even the people are overly friendly and kind, but with a suspicious eye. The town is very reminiscent of any film or show that houses a cult or maybe a shared secret. Think The Lottery, Midsummer, or Apostle. Something's not right, but everyone also seems so accommodating that it's difficult to tell if you should run when the hairs on the back of your neck just start to stand up. I would have loved to dive further into the town lore, but it also would have distracted from the central focus of the Academy and the potential horrors that it hides. Plus, we do get some background on the locale, even though it's doled out rather slowly across the episodes. Now, the story basically plays out from two different perspectives. One, where we get to follow the teens inside Tall Pines Academy. We see how regimented and cruel the structure is, feeling more like an asylum or prison than a place that's meant to instill positive values and life skills. This isn't a surprising aspect because we can kind of predict that inside the walls of the place, the environment is much darker and dire than what's on the brochure. Now, some of the things we see inside feel like a mix of the Stanford Prison Experiment and A Clockwork Orange, where psychological torment and manipulation are the mainstays in correcting behaviors, or at least they're supposed to. There are some times, though, when it's tough to watch, and that also helps to set the kids up to be the ones we cheer for, no matter how fierce or aggressive they might be. And I kept waiting for the injustices to be righted and then certain people to get their comeuppances. To a degree, we get some of that, but don't get your hopes up that all will be right with the world when the show comes to an end. It holds on to a bit of the melancholy, even some hopelessness that is established from the very start. And then Toni Collette, as the head of the Academy, she's wonderfully creepy. I mean, she's granola-y and smarmy, but her character lays it on so thick that it's strange most can't see right through it. Collette is less of a nurturing mom figure here, more of an opportunistic, somewhat deranged, manipulative woman who wields her influence and power broadly and forcibly. She's absolutely the villain of the story, but also somehow Collette manages to capture this bit of sympathy for the character, creating a slightly confusing emotional response at certain times to her unflinching headmistress persona. I mean, think Umbridge, without the pink, and then less hands-on abuse. The other perspective we get to view this through is Martin's Alex. Alex is not a saint, doesn't even have a spotless work record when it comes to policing, creating character vulnerabilities that can be exploited if the wrong people found out. Now, Alex is a caring and devoted character, constantly looking to help, even if that help isn't always appreciated or even acted on in the needed way. Now, this has zero to do with anything, but all throughout the series, I couldn't shake the feeling that Martin looked exactly like Topher Grace. I mean, like they could play twins, or at least siblings at some point. It was almost distracting to me, and then because that had popped into my skull, now you get it also. I enjoyed the dynamic between Alex and Laura, because it's not an uncomplicated relationship. We get to see strain, especially when Alex begins to feel like a total outsider as Laura reconnects with people that she knew from before. The strife is present, but also isn't that strained or stressful. Like the story was afraid to create too much conflict within this relationship that would point to the wonkiness and then potentially untoward nature of the townsfolk. And really, that's kind of how the entire series sits. Portions get a little disturbing, especially when the kids are affected, but as a whole, this promises to be a light version of Shawshank meets Escape from New York, but it ends up being Spiderhead mixed with Prison Break. And while some stakes are created and tension is established, this errs more on the side of a YA-themed thriller than anything aimed at adults. Even the ending is mostly unsatisfying. There's a ton of buildup and scheming, along with risk-taking and treachery, but when the credits roll and the limited series has run its course, not much has actually been accomplished. If you look at this show as more of a social critique, then it does do an adequate job of showcasing the dangers and harm these sorts of academies inflict. It can even be rewarding to watch some baddies get consequences, but on the whole, the message is still very surface level, avoiding the meaningful depth and resolution that could come from strong character choices being carried out. This tries to make all of the characters fulfilled, at least to a degree, but what we should want to get is growth and decisive action that rewards some and punishes others. Despite the series creating a menacing and distressing atmosphere, showcasing unjust cruelty to a vulnerable population, and then delivering some scenarios that are terrible and callous, Wayward fails to examine the themes it establishes by minimizing character complications, short-sheeting plot complexities, and all but eliminating significant consequences. The acting is sufficient for the storytelling, with the leads clashing appropriately, despite resolutions coming about hurriedly and effortlessly. The darkness the show promises only gets dim, still allowing for an optimistic view of human nature to dominate through story conveniences and decisions that contradict character development. I wanted this to commit to the tone it began with, and even though some maddening gloom exists, the storytelling chooses the safe and tame way to execute the tale. There's a little sex, some nudity, ton of profanity, and then a bunch of violence. I give Wayward 2.5 out of 5 couches. So what are some dark dramas or thrillers that you're watching right now? Anything good that you can recommend to me? I would love to hear about them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.